Hi, I'm Ava, a simple housewife and mom. The story of Mark and me wasn't always tinted with the shades of disconnect it now bore. It began like a fairy tale. Our joy multiplied when we discovered I was pregnant. We spent nights talking about our future, about the little life we were about to welcome. Mark's eyes would light up as he placed his hand on my belly, feeling the tiny kicks, a sign of the new life we created together. The day Liam was born, Mark was by my side, holding my hand and offering words of strength. "You're the strongest woman I know, Ava," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The first time he held Liam, I saw tears in his eyes, a mirror to my own. But as seasons changed, so did the color of our relationship. The man who would rush home to be with us now found reasons to stay away. "Work's been crazy," he'd say, or, "I need to sort out some things." Excuses piled up, each one chipping away at the foundation of our family. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the living room, I decided to breach the growing gap between us. "Mark, do you remember how we used to be? How we planned for Liam, how we dreamed of our future?" I asked, my voice a mix of longing and apprehension. He didn't look up from his phone. "Of course, I remember, Ava. But times change. Responsibilities grow. You wouldn't understand." I felt a sharp sting at his words. I wouldn't understand? "Mark, I'm living those changes and responsibilities with you. But it feels like I'm doing it alone. You're here, but not really with us." Mark sighed, a sound of annoyance rather than understanding. "Ava, what do you want from me? I'm providing for this family, isn't that enough?" I shook my head, the ache in my heart growing. "It's not just about providing, Mark. It's about being present, sharing moments with Liam, with me. We used to talk, laugh, and now." "Now what?" he interjected, finally looking at me, his eyes void of the warmth I once knew. "Now, I feel like a single parent. Liam asks about you, wonders why you're not around. And I miss my husband. I miss us." Mark stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the wooden floor. "You miss us?" "Ava, I'm right here. But I have to work, I have to ensure our future. I can't just sit around and pretend everything's fine." I watched him, the distance between us more profound than the room that held us. "Pretending isn't what I want, Mark. I want reality, our reality. But it seems like we're living in two different worlds now." He walked away without another word, leaving me in the growing darkness, the silence a stark reminder of the chasm that had formed between us. The day had started like any other, but it quickly turned into one I'd never forget. It was a typical Thursday morning, and I was in the kitchen, Liam chattering away about his toy cars. The phone rang, piercing the mundane tranquility. It was my dad, his voice usually so robust and cheerful, now reduced to a frail whisper that sent shivers down my spine. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" I asked, trying to sound upbeat despite the worry that crept into my voice. "Ava, sweetheart, I've got some bad news," Dad said, and I could hear the strain in his voice, the effort it took for him to speak those words. "The doctors, they found cancer, Ava. It's bad." My heart sank, and I gripped the counter for support. "Cancer? Dad, no, that can't be right. You're always so healthy." He let out a tired sigh. "I thought so too, honey. But the tests don't lie. We're looking at our options, but the doctors, they aren't too hopeful." Tears welled up in my eyes as I struggled to process his words. I had to tell Mark, he needed to know, to be there for me, like he used to be. Mark was in his home office, buried in his work as usual. I knocked softly, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. "Mark, can I talk to you?" "It's important," I said, my voice barely a whisper. He glanced up, irritation flashing across his face. "What is it, Ava?" "I'm swamped right now." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my shaking voice. "It's my dad. He's been diagnosed with cancer. It's serious, Mark. For a moment, there was silence. Then, to my disbelief, a smirk appeared on Mark's face. Cancer, huh? Well, that's unfortunate. How much do you think we're talking about in terms of inheritance? I felt a cold chill run down my spine. Inheritance? Mark, are you serious? My dad's sick, and that's all you can think about. He shrugged, his indifference cutting deeper than any knife. Well, Ava, let's be realistic. The old man's not getting any younger. It's a smart move to start thinking about what comes next. You know, for Liam and our future. Anger bubbled inside me, my hands balling into fists. You're unbelievable, Mark. My dad might be dying, and you're counting dollars? Where's your heart? Mark stood up, his expression hard and unyielding. Look, Ava, I'm just saying what everyone's thinking but too afraid to say. It's about being practical, not emotional. I stared at him, my heart pounding with a mixture of grief and rage. Practical? There's nothing practical about being a heartless jerk. My dad needs us right now, and all you care about is money. He rolled his eyes, a gesture that fueled my fury. Don't be so dramatic, Ava. It's not about the money. It's about being prepared for the future. Prepared? You call this being prepared? I shot back, my voice rising. You're so wrapped up in your own world that you can't even see the pain right in front of you. Mark let out a dismissive snort. Pain, drama, whatever you want to call it, Ava. I've got real problems to deal with. Let me know when you're done with your little emotional episode. He turned his back to me, effectively ending the conversation. I stood there, trembling with a mix of sorrow and disbelief. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind of silence that weighs heavy on your shoulders. Liam, my little ray of sunshine, had finally drifted off to sleep after what felt like hours of bedtime stories and lullabies. I crept out of his room, my mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Mark had been distant lately, more than usual, and it gnawed at me, a constant nagging in the back of my mind. As I made my way through the dimly lit hallway, a faint whisper stopped me in my tracks. It was coming from the living room. Mark's voice, hushed but intense, filtered through the air. A sense of unease settled over me. Who could he be talking to at this hour, and why so secretly? I edged closer, the floorboards creaking under my feet. My heart was pounding, each beat loud in the eerie silence of the night. Yeah, I'm fed up, totally fed up, Mark was saying, his voice a mix of frustration and bitterness. Ava's driving me nuts, always on my case. And the kid, always whining. It's like I can't catch a break. I felt a sting in my chest, his words slicing through me. I pressed my back against the wall, the coolness of the paint barely registering. This wasn't the Mark I knew, or at least, the Mark I thought I knew. The woman on the other end of the line giggled, her voice a sharp contrast to the turmoil swirling inside me. But honey, soon you'll be free, right? Once her old man kicks the bucket, you'll have the dough. We can ditch this dead-end life and start fresh. Mark's laugh, dark and devoid of any warmth, filled the room. You got that right. Her dad's loaded, and Ava doesn't have a clue. Once he's gone, we'll be rolling in it. Just gotta play the grieving husband for a bit, and then it's just you and me, babe. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This man, the one I had shared my life with, was plotting against me, against us, his family. The conversation continued, their words a poisonous concoction of deceit and betrayal. But with each passing moment, my shock transformed into determination. Mark thought he had it all figured out, but he was gravely mistaken. I wouldn't let him get away with this, not without a fight. The hospital's sterile smell was a stark contrast to the chaos brewing in my heart. Dad's room was at the end of the long corridor, each step towards it heavy with dread. But I needed to see him, to talk to him about the tangled web Mark had woven around us. Dad was sitting up in bed, his face drawn but his eyes bright with that familiar spark of resilience. "Ava, my girl, come here," he said, his voice stronger than I'd expected. "Dad, I'm so sorry. This is all just too much," I said, the words tumbling out as I took his hand, its warmth a small comfort. He squeezed my hand, a silent message of strength. "Ava, we're fighters, you and me. Don't you forget that." I took a deep breath, the hospital's hum a distant noise. "Dad, there's something else. It's Mark. He's not the man I thought he was. He's planning to leave me, take everything after. Dad's brow furrowed, a storm brewing in his eyes. "What are you saying, Ava?" "That rat's planning to jump ship and take the money." I nodded, the reality of saying it aloud making it all the more painful. "Yes, and it's not just that. He's got someone else, Dad. He's been talking to her, planning all this." The room was thick with tension, Dad's grip on my hand now a lifeline. "That scumbag," he growled. "After all you've done, all you've been through together. Dad, I don't know what to do. He's got access to everything, the accounts, the investments. If he leaves..." Dad's eyes narrowed, the fighter in him rising to the surface. "Listen, Ava, we're not letting him get away with this. You're my daughter, and no one messes with my family." "But how, Dad?" "He's always one step ahead," I said, feeling the weight of despair. Dad's smile was a mix of cunning and resolve. "Ava, in my days, I've dealt with plenty of rats. And the thing about rats? They always fall for the cheese." I looked at him, confusion and curiosity mingling in my thoughts. "Cheese, Dad?" He chuckled, a sound that echoed with a lifetime of wisdom and wit. "A metaphor, my girl. We're going to set a trap, a lure so tempting that he won't be able to resist. And when he goes for it, that's when we spring the trap." I could feel a spark of hope, a flicker of the old fire that used to define me. "What's the plan, Dad?" "We'll make him think the end is near, that the money's about to flow into your hands. His greed will blind him, make him sloppy. That's when you'll gather all the evidence you need. And when the time's right, we'll pull the rug out from under him." It was risky, a high-stakes game of deception and cunning. But it was a chance, a way to turn the tables on Mark and reclaim my life. "Dad, if we do this, there's no turning back," I said, the gravity of our plot settling in. Dad's grip tightened, a silent pact between us. "Ava, we're in this together. To the end. And another thing, the doctors screwed up with their diagnosis, I'm tougher than they thought." As I left the hospital that day, Dad's plan replaying in my mind, I felt a shift within me. The victim of Mark's deceit was gone, replaced by a woman ready to fight, ready to protect her family at any cost. The game was on, and I, Ava, was no longer playing by Mark's rules. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table, the air thick with unsaid words, I decided to lay the first thread of our trap. "Mark, I talked to the doctors today. Dad's condition, it's worse than we thought," I said, my voice steady but laced with fabricated despair. Mark looked up from his plate, his interest piqued, not by concern, but by the scent of the bait. "Worse, you say? How bad are we talking?" I took a deep breath, the lie bitter on my tongue. "They're saying it's just a matter of weeks now. And with the will and everything. It's all going to be so sudden, so final." Mark's eyes glinted, a telltale sign of the greed stirring within. "Weeks, huh? Well, that's unfortunate. But, Ava, we need to think about what comes next. The inheritance, it's going to be a big deal for us, for Liam's future." His words, so void of genuine emotion, fueled the fire inside me. "Yes, Mark, the inheritance. It's all Dad has left for us. I wish it didn't have to be this way." Mark reached across the table, his hand on mine a cold comfort. "Ava, it's tough, I know. But we'll get through this. And once it's all settled, we'll be in a better place, financially at least. The conversation drifted into other mundane topics, but the seed was planted, the first thread of our web intricately woven into the fabric of our daily lives. As the days passed, I fed Mark tidbits of information, each one a carefully crafted piece of the puzzle. Dad, playing his part flawlessly, relayed messages of his worsening condition, the doctor's grim prognosis echoing through our phone calls. Then came the day to set the stage for the final act. I waited for Mark to return from work, the fake death certificate a heavy weight in my hands. "Mark, I need to talk to you." "It's Dad, he's gone," I said, the words a rehearsed script of grief and loss. Mark froze, his face a mask of shock that quickly morphed into poorly concealed anticipation. "Gone? You mean?" I nodded, the tears in my eyes real, but not for the reasons he believed. "Yes, Mark. He passed away this morning. It was peaceful," they said. "But now we have to deal with everything he's left behind." Mark's demeanor changed, a predatory glint in his eye. "I'm sorry, Ava, for your loss. But we need to be practical. The inheritance, it's going to be transferred soon, right?" I swallowed the lump in my throat, the reality of his betrayal a constant ache. "Yes, the lawyers are handling it. It should be in our account in a month. $400,000, just like Dad wanted." Mark's smile was a crack in his facade, a glimpse into the depth of his deception. "Well, then, that's something. Look, I've got a business trip coming up. It's urgent, can't be delayed. I won't be able to make the funeral." I pretended to be surprised. "A business trip? Now?" "Mark, my dad just died." He stood up, his back to me as he gathered his things. "I know, Ava, and I'm sorry. But this is important. For our future. You understand, right?" As he left, the final piece of our web in place, I knew the moment of reckoning was near. Mark, with his plans and his mistress, was walking right into the trap we'd set. The hospital room was quiet when I entered, the steady beep of the heart monitor in sync with the racing of my own heart. Dad's face lit up when he saw me, a mix of concern and determination in his tired eyes. "Hey, Dad. Mark's gone." "He fell for it, left for his so-called business trip," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Dad gave a knowing nod, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. "I knew he would. That man's as predictable as a cheap clock. Now, listen, Ava, it's time for the next step. Here," he said, passing me a small piece of paper, "is the number of a guy you need to meet. Frank. He's the best private investigator around. He'll turn Mark's world upside down." I clutched the paper, feeling a surge of determination. "Thanks, Dad. I'll call him right away. We can't let Mark get away with this." Picking up my phone, I dialed the number, my heart pounding with every ring. A gruff voice answered. "Frank speaking." "Hi, Frank. I'm Ava. My dad recommended I speak to you. It's about my husband. I need to prove his infidelity and his plans against me." Frank's voice was calm, reassuring. "You've come to the right place, Ava. I've seen all sorts of lowlifes in my time. Tell me everything, and I'll take care of the rest." As I recounted the sordid details, Frank listened without interruption, the occasional "huh" punctuating my tale of betrayal. "All right, Ava. I've got a clear picture now. I'll start tailing your husband immediately. You'll get regular updates from me." And he did it. Photographs of Mark with his mistress, their body language painting a picture no words needed to describe, recordings of their conversations filled with scorn for me and excitement for the future they wrongly believed they were about to steal from under me. Each piece of evidence was a blow, but also a building block in the case I was building against Mark. I stored everything carefully, a dossier of deceit that would soon come crashing down on him. One evening, as I sat in the dim light of the living room after putting Liam to bed, I reviewed the latest batch of evidence. The sound of their laughter, the sight of them cozying up, it hurt, but it also fueled my resolve. Dad's voice from our last conversation echoed in my head. Ava, he's a fool. And fools tend to dig their own graves. You just make sure you're there to push him in. For a whole month, I had been a silent warrior, balancing my role as Liam's mom with the covert operation to expose Mark's treachery. My days were filled with phone calls to Dad, updates from Frank, and nights spent sifting through the evidence of Mark's betrayal. Then my phone rang, shattering the silence of the evening. It was Mark, his voice a blend of confusion and urgency. Ava, what the hell's going on? I just checked our account, and it's practically empty. Where's the money from your old man's will? I let out a cold laugh, the sound echoing the bitterness in my heart. Oh, Mark, you really are clueless, aren't you? There's no inheritance because Dad's not dead. He's very much alive. Mark's confusion turned into disbelief. Alive? But, Ava, you told me. Why the hell would you say he passed away? I leaned against the kitchen counter, the cool marble against my skin a stark contrast to the heat of the moment. I needed to see how low you'd go, Mark. And guess what? You didn't just go low, you hit rock bottom. Running off with your girlfriend, plotting to snatch my inheritance, you really outdid yourself. Mark's voice shook, a cocktail of fear and realization. Wait, Ava, what are you talking about? What evidence? The smirk on my face was one of triumph, a warrior savoring her victory. I'm talking about the snapshots of your infidelity, the sweet recordings of your betrayal. Frank's been quite the busy bee. We've got everything, Mark. Every rendezvous, every nasty plan spelled out loud and clear. Panic laced Mark's words, a symphony of desperation. Ava, please, let's talk about this. It's not what you think. We can fix this, can't we? But the time for talking had long passed. Fix this? Mark, you shattered everything. There's nothing left to fix. I'm filing for divorce, and I'll make sure the judge hears every sordid detail of your escapades. Infidelity, planned fraud, and don't think I've forgotten about child support. Mark's pleas were a drowning man's grasp at straws. No, Ava, don't do this. I'm begging you. Give me a chance to make things right. The resolve in my voice was ironclad, the final nail in the coffin of our marriage. A chance? It's too late, Mark. The game's over. The phone line went silent, the end of an era, the curtain call of a marriage built on lies. As I hung up, the reality of it all sank in. The trap had been sprung, the prey ensnared. The courtroom was an arena where truth battled deceit, and today, it was the battleground for my new beginning. Mark sat across from me, a mere shell of the man I once knew. His eyes darted around, avoiding my gaze, a silent testament to his guilt. I sat upright, my resolve as firm as the wooden back of the chair supporting me. The judge entered, his presence commanding immediate respect. We're here to address the case of Mrs. Parker versus Mr. Parker, he began, his voice authoritative and impartial. This court will not tolerate deceit and betrayal. Mr. Parker, how do you respond to the charges against you? Mark's voice trembled, a stark contrast to his usual bravado. Your Honor, I admit I made mistakes. But I'm not the villain she's making me out to be. Please, I'm asking for a chance to make things right. I couldn't help but scoff quietly at his plea. Standing up, I addressed the courtroom, my voice steady and clear. Your Honor, the evidence speaks louder than his hollow words. This man, who vowed to be a partner and father, chose betrayal and greed instead. His actions shattered our family. He doesn't deserve leniency, he deserves to face the full weight of his actions. The judge nodded solemnly, his eyes scanning the room. The court has reviewed the evidence, and it's clear. Mr. Parker, you are to pay $200,000 for your betrayal and $2,000 monthly for child support. You've broken trust in the most egregious way, and today, you are held accountable for your actions. Mark's face fell, the finality of the judgment a crushing blow to his delusions of escape. The gavel struck, the sound echoing the closing of a painful chapter. As I stepped out of the courtroom, the sunlight greeted me like a long-lost friend. Liam came running, his little steps quick with anticipation. "Mom, is it over? Can we go home now?" I scooped him into my arms, his presence a reminder of the life that awaited beyond the courtroom's walls. "Yes, my love, it's over. We're starting anew, just the two of us, stronger and braver." Dad approached, his strides confident, his smile wide. "Ava, you did it. You stood your ground and showed him you're not someone to mess with. This is your new beginning, your time to shine." I glanced at Dad, then down at Liam, my heart swelling with pride and hope. "Yes, Dad. It's our time. A new chapter, one we write ourselves."